I was getting some questions about this 3D printed bracket that I made for when you don't have the ability to mount an armrest on the passenger seat of your Honda Element. So here I have an older version of the 3D printed bracket on. You can see it here in the white. I'm just gonna remove this and kind of show you guys how I installed the new version. These bolts, first of all, what you're gonna need is you're gonna need to go acquire an armrest. Either go to a junkyard or buy one on eBay. I wouldn't recommend buying one for more than $40 if you can help it. And make sure it comes with this bracket here, this metal bracket, the armrest, and all the hardware. It does come with, it'll come with bolts that would normally mount on to the seat, but you're not going to need those. So you can see here on the bracket, it has inserts for nuts. So that's what these bolts are driven into here. So I'm just going to loosen these up and take this bracket off real quick. Now that I've taken the bracket off, you can more clearly see how I mounted this. It's just 2 sheet metal screws here. And these ones, it's just holes. And then this version, I did slots. So we're going to see how that works out. I think it might be better, it might be worse. I was thinking I could make both versions available for people, so whichever one they think they prefer, they can try. The advantage to the slots is that, you know, you put the screws in and then you can move it so that you have some degree of freedom there when you're adjusting the armrest. Versus the advantage with just the holes there is that once you screw it in, you know it's not going to loosen up and pivot on you. But I think that what I'd probably do here is I'd use the pivot one, and then once I kind of found the position that I liked, I would put some double-sided VHB 3M tape on here, and then I would screw it in where I want it, and the VHB would get set in by the pressure of the screws, and then, you know, it's not going anywhere once it has VHB on it. So I'm gonna remove this now, and then I'm gonna show you how to install one from start. So now that I have the bracket removed here, you can see kind of where I mounted it. So the whole dealio here is that you take the bracket, which has a hole in the middle, and you line this hole up with the hole here in the chair, and that's going to put it exactly where the armrest mount would have been if they had welded an armrest mount onto this chair. And then from that point, once you line it up, you're going to get it as straight with the chair as you can get it, and then you're going to drive the sheet metal screws in on either side. So these are sheet metal screws, so they have a little drill bit at the end that are going to screw into the metal, and then it's going to bite at the threads, and then that's going to make a nice hole there for you that'll bite into the metal. And the first thing you actually need to do is you need to cut this hole here, and this hole is in the same spot that you would cut it if you were putting an armrest on to a seat that had the armrest bracket already on it. So those dimensions are going to be in the description. I don't know them off the top of my head, but it's in the manual for installing an armrest. So I'll drop a picture or something in the description so you guys can get the exact dimensions of where you need to cut this hole. And just trust the dimensions and look for this hole, because that's going to be your center. And then once you have your center, you can kind of cut around it until this fits. And then when you put the armrest on, it's going to cover that up. So you're not going to see it, as you can see here, because I cut the same hole here and you don't see it. It gets covered up. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to take these nuts out of the old one. I need to put them into the new one. And they're going to be pretty tight, so I'm going to have to push pretty hard to get them in. But once they're in there, we don't really want them coming out. So it's better to have them tight than not. So I thought I made these pretty tight, but you can see they even fall out a little bit. So I might even make that a little bit tighter on the final version so that these nuts don't fall out. So now you just kind of insert this in and I'm gonna do the best I can here with one hand, but I might have to make a pause. So you kind of insert that in, and then what you would do here is how I did it originally is I stuck my finger here, and then I felt that it lined up, and then I drove the screw in with my drill on the top end, and then I aligned it so it's at the right angle, and then I drew the screw in on the bottom end. But since I already drew them in, now I'm gonna screw them in with just a hand screwdriver. So I'll be back. So now I got these screws driven in. I didn't tighten them down all the way because right now I want to kind of find the angle that I want to put it at. And previously, when I had just the 2-hole one in here, it was like that, and I noticed the armrest was a little bit more down than it needed to be. So I'm gonna angle this one just a little bit up like that, and there you go. So I think that's a good spot. So I'm gonna cinch these down, and then I'm gonna put the bracket in. And then after I put the bracket in, I'm gonna put the screws into the bracket. And the bracket, it only fits one way. If you try to mount it like that, it's not gonna fit right, and the holes aren't gonna line up. So just make sure you mount it like that. So then once you get it on there, you wanna make sure that it's behind the foam on all 4 of the corners. So now you can take your M6 bolts and you can drive them in here. Make sure you don't push the nut out the back. Be careful, you can stick your finger behind to stop it from falling out the back, because otherwise it's gonna be hard to, you're gonna have to take the whole thing off. And now I got that bolted on there. You don't need to go super tight with these because it's a plastic 3D printed piece, so if you put too much torque on it, it's just gonna squish it. But you want it secure. So now I'm gonna put the armrest on here. So I'm gonna take this bolt off, and then you got yourself an armrest. Okay, so yeah, that just instantly shifted all the way to the end. So I don't think I'm gonna do this slotted design like I have, because it's just really easy to move.